had somebody present one of their fingers to an opposition member. We've seen people offer to take people outside and continue to teach them a lesson. Before I thought about this, I thought, look, let's talk to some teachers and principals, and I did make some phone calls, and we consulted with the MBTA, who hasn't taken a position on it, because they do feel it is political.
What do you mean by that, Jack?
Well, I think they think that this is being exploited. This is a motherhood issue. It's a wedge issue. It's and ironically, well, I think Jody's 100% sincere in what he's trying to do. I do believe that. If it was the right tool, I would sit here and say I support it. But I also worry about taking that authority away from principals and teachers and parents and councils that may see a bigger problem. Bullying is a symptom of something else going on in that child's life. Usually it's a bad home life. It's a victim of abuse themselves. And I agree with Kelly. Like, we just can't come in and say this is the solution, and that's the problem with legislation. It's kind of like if you go 10 miles over the speed limit, you're up for a ticket. If you go .10, you're up for a drinking and driving charge. And when you try to legislate behavior with consequences through legislation, I think we are in danger of not getting it right. We have excellent teachers, and we have an excellent education system in New Brunswick. I'm a witness to that through my children and through my experience. And I think that these principals are well trained. The staffs are deeply concerned. If they're not crying out for it, I'm not sure that it's anything more than a symbolic action. Which is important, but I think there's a lot of symbolism that can be achieved in other ways.
Okay, Jody, do you want to respond to that? Because that sounds like it should go to you.
Yeah, well, certainly this bill doesn't limit the discretion of the principal. I want to make that clear. It doesn't tie the hands. It doesn't call for automatic suspensions. It says that bullying and harassment, it's defined as being a series of actions that are chronic and systematic. And it also raises the awareness of education programs.
So what does it do then, Jody?
What it does, and I told Terry this earlier in the week, it's not a fix-all. It won't stop bullying.
What does it
What it does and what it will do is help. It raises the awareness, and it says that this is a serious issue. Same way when someone says, why put, no law on paper is going to stop an issue. And the opposition has never pretended that to be the case. I think why this is elevated to such a level this week is that the government has chosen to close the legislature. People like Rob Furnett, who has worked several years with the previous government and this government, and he wants to see an acknowledgement. He wants to see this elevated to as a serious issue. And there are other ways, and there should be other ways, but this is a pretty easy way.
It's a symbolic.
It's not
action.
It's not just symbolic.
Well, then what
but
is it extra that it does?
It defines bullying. Bullying is not defined even in Policy 703. Maybe that's an improvement that can happen to 703, but it also, this is important to do. There's legislation is done all the time and it's never enforced. I'm not saying this is the case here, but why is the government taking such a huge, when they won't even discuss, like other provinces, for instance, have done legislation.
Okay,
other provinces done legislation,
let's ask
but it doesn't
Amrock
fix
that
and
question.
stop the problem.
Go ahead.
But it's important to do to say to parents and students that are being bullied that it's not acceptable, and it starts at the top, and the top is at the Legislative Assembly.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess here's my concern about it is, look, here's something I am proud of, and I want to walk a line between pointing out that a number of changes were made by this government when I was minister that I'm proud of without pretending that we've solved the problem.
On this particular issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Policy 703 was rewritten. One thing I'm really proud of is, for example, there's now a requirement for schools to develop positive statements of behavior. One thing I don't like about the bill is it says, here's bullying, which is bad, and here's what we do to you if you bully. We suspend you. Schools that have shown a real turnaround, though, they actually find ways to say it's not about just slapping you down when you're bad. What are the values we instill and stand for? Empathy, the courage to speak up, including kids, respect for differences. They have to have that code. They have to reward and encourage that behavior and find positive modeling. Not one mention of anything but punishment appears in this bill.
That's not true.
Okay, let me jump in.
And so I think we've got, and I guess I would say this, maybe just I believe that a bill that doesn't list punishments besides a principal shall suspend and educate I think doesn't give that discretion.
It doesn't say suspend, Kelly. It doesn't. You're mischaracterizing.
Well, let's find out. Let's sort this out, gentlemen. What does it say?
Bullying and harassment, as defined in this Act, provide cause for suspension. A principal shall, in addition to a suspension, shall require one, some, or all of the parties involved to participate in education programs highlighting the negative consequences associated.
In addition to a suspension. So you have to suspend before you educate.
And if you want to change shall to may, then bring it to committee. Minister, bring it to committee and let's have that discussion.
Let's bring it to a summit where not just politicians can be heard. Let's involve students, let's involve teachers, let's involve people.
Okay,
I think that's important.
On that point, and Mr. Duguay, I'm coming to you, but let me just preface your comment by saying, you know, for a child who feels that the current system, the current environment isn't preventing them from being a victim of bully, for a person like Rob Fournette, is a bullying summit going to solve their problem?
No, but what I want to come back, not very long ago, we know we had a Minister of Education in New Brunswick who had the intention or to do some cuts, you know, about teacher aides, and I know they are very important in school. And
who are you referring to, just so...
You know...
someone at this table? Or?
This government, you know, and I think we can pass legislation and have beautiful rules and this and that, but, you know, we need also staff to help teachers who have in charge of... Also, I think bullying is not an issue by itself. I think it's related to if you have... the number of students in the class, I think, doesn't help the teacher who is in charge of that school. And if we don't do enough effort to have less students in a school in our province, that doesn't help. We can have good legislation, but it doesn't help. And I think as a supply teacher, I experience that not every day. And I think it is important. We have to be consequent on what we say. If we want to have a legislation, but also I think the adults in schools have to be there to deal with those situations. And also I think we have to do something who bully, and for those also who are bullied, you know, for all people. And I think our approach as the NDP, I think, is we have to deal with, like Mr. McDougall said, we cannot just kick off the school that student, but we have to sit and communicate and do something to try to find the roots of the problem.
It wasn't so long ago that we used to strap children in New Brunswick.
I received the strap when I was in elementary school.
And it was perhaps the most vicious form of punishment that a teacher could take a leather strap and they typically hit boys frequently because they smirked, they laughed, they joked around, and they did something. And I remember the debate around abolishing the strap as being too radical and whatever. And many teachers spoke out against abolishing the strap. And today I don't think you'd find one teacher in New Brunswick who would ever stand up and say we should bring the strap back. So there's tremendous... Education is the answer. And it's to explain to people what is it. It's classism being slightly different from other people, some little better off than others. It's cultures, it's religions, it's size of people. It's there's so much that to what bullying, what engenders bullying, and our education through television, through example by our politicians, through example by our parents, through example by our teachers.
Media.
I've seen teachers bully students. I've seen it where they literally. I thought if you ever spoke to one of my children like that, I'd be up in arms about it, and so. But I'm impressed. I've been in the school system for a few years, and I've studied education, and I'm very impressed with the efforts and by the multifaceted approach by teachers and schools to bullying. And I think it's a perpetual effort. I don't think in 10 years we'll have solved it, but we can constantly improve it through education and discussion and intelligent approaches. And I'm not sure, like, the legislation, I congratulate you for a